Welcome to Golf Industry Guru and the Gig Podcast, where we interview the best and brightest golf and hospitality leaders on the planet. On today's episode, you will learn some proven real-world solutions that'll help you and your team solve some of your biggest golf business challenges. So stick around for some tips, tools, and training to get you, your people, and your business powered on. Here's your host, James Kronk.
Well, hello, Gig Nation. We are back for another Golf Industry Guru podcast, and I am your host, James Kronk. And I got to tell you, today we're retitling our podcast, and it's called now the Potscast, because I can't believe that this guy has not already, trademarked that with regards to his podcast. So I'm thrilled to bring to your ears Mr. Ricky Potts. And Ricky is a man of many talents, many interests. And I connected and heard about Ricky when I started listening to his podcast. And when I started trying to find some guests for our show and for people to bring on, I started looking at all these wonderful podcasts around the industry, and I came across Ricky's Wednesday Match Play podcast presented by MemberText. And as I said, I think it should be called Potscast, but that's just me. But Ricky he's a fantastic interviewer, number one. He's a lover of golf. He's supposedly a lover of craft beer, and supposedly he's also a lover of electronic dance music. So I can tell you right now, there's only two of those three things we're going to talk about possibly in today's podcast. But I'm not going to go any further. The membership director from the Fountain Grove Golf Club and the host of the Wednesday Match Play podcast presented by MemberText, Mr. Ricky Potts. Ricky, welcome to the Golf Industry Guru Potscast.
I am going to steal that. I've written that down, so I may have to put this on pause and go make sure that I can obtain ownership of that. It is incredible. How have I never thought of that? That is incredible. Well done on that. I am so excited to be here. This is just a cool opportunity to be on the other end of the interview process, and I am obsessed with the content that you guys are putting out and just very, very excited for this chat.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ricky. And I've learned so much listening to so many different sessions, and I'm on your podcast, and I'm fascinated. I mean, you and I could chat all day long about the business of podcasting or about how to make it work, and I've got some questions for you. But as you know, our Gig Nation, our golf industry operators, their managers, their employees, their people that work in the golf industry. And I can only imagine the things that you've learned and you've kind of absorbed in your 260 podcasts that you've kind of done over the years. But before we get there, I wanted to talk a little bit about your journey, if you don't mind, and just about kind of, how you have gotten into this business we call the golf industry, how you've discovered the roles that you've got, how you even got into the whole world of podcasting. So share with our Gig Nation, if you don't mind, a little bit about the Ricky Potts journey.
So I started my journey. I'm from Indiana originally, so I am from the middle of the Midwest, born and raised, and my backyard was a cornfield. I'll tell this story forever, that I got into the game of golf because I wanted to get out of the Midwest and go west and play more golf. And I used to hit golf balls into that cornfield that was behind my home. I'd hit the balls into the cornfield while the corn was up and wait for them to cut the corn down so I could go pick them up and do it all over again the next season. So
your own field of dreams, for goodness sake.
And what's the timing of that? How incredible was that game the other night? What an unbelievable, just to see the look on his face when he literally came through that cornfield. But yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I went to school at Purdue University, got a degree in engineering, and said, I am done with the winters. I'm going to move to Scottsdale. So on my own, I packed my bags and moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. And a year later, got the opportunity to get a position in the Troon corporate office. So Troon, as everyone knows, is the world's largest golf course management company. Got the opportunity 3 years, almost to the day later. My boss at the time comes to me and says, hey, it's time for you to go to your next opportunity. Had no idea what that looked like, what that meant. Went through an interview process at a property in Naples, Florida. had never been to Naples, Florida, and had 14 days to sell my house and move to Southwest Florida because I started my new position as the Director of Marketing and Communications at Tiburon Golf Club at the Ritz-Carlton Golf Resort. My first day, I walk into the office and an LPGA Tour event was beginning. So my first week at the club was an LPGA Tour event. Got the chance while I was in Florida to work 3 LPGA Tour events, 3 PGA Tour events, and spent a lot of time understanding how the operations of a private club, a little bit of access to the daily fee side with the Ritz-Carlton associates being able to access tee times, but to be able to see what a private club with a tour event. And now the club actually, since I've left, the property has a Champions Tour event as well. So they host 3 major championships. They host 3 professional tour events in the fall season. And then about 2.5 years after that, I'm sitting in my office, and I'll never forget this. My boss comes in and he says, "Hey, there's a property in Rhode Island that needs some support. We're slowing down. Their season's starting. Any chance you want to go up there and help for a summer?" I wasn't even out of my chair yet booking flights to go up to Rhode Island to help a private club in Cranston. I spent 7 days a week for that entire summer helping that property, learning about golf operations, running tournaments, scoring events, all of the things that go along with being what an assistant golf professional would do. Went back to Florida a couple of months later. I'm looking at opportunities, and having never been to Santa Rosa, there was a brand new Troon facility, the only 18-hole member-owned private facility in Sonoma County. And I am a big craft beer guy, so let's tie this back to craft beer. Russian River Brewing Company, who is basically the epitome of the West Coast IPA with Pliny the Elder, is literally walking distance from where I'm speaking. So that was that wasn't the reason why I moved to Santa Rosa, but that was a nice little benefit. And having never sold memberships before, got the opportunity to interview with Mr. Ron Banaszak, who is a longtime Club Management Association of America member, has over 2,000 credits, and is to this day, he's now in Los Angeles at a property, is still a mentor of mine and someone that if I had a question about anything, I could text him or call him. And that's all been over the last few years. And I've been with Troon for 8 years now and have gone from the West Coast to the East Coast and back to the West Coast again. So it's been a fun ride and learning every step of the way.
That's awesome, man. Let's talk about Troon for a second. I don't know if we've chatted about this, Ricky, but my mentor is Mr. Jim McLaughlin, who, of course, was the VP of Troon Privé for many years and now runs another arm of the Troon Golf business. But in your years, because Scott and I often look to Troon for best practices, for industry examples. At one point, we were actually chatting about a property for Troon in Canada, so that would have been exciting, but it didn't come to fruition. But what do you think is some of the reasons why Troon has had the success that it's had in the golf management space, over so many years?
I think it's the people. I mean, we in the club business work in the people business, and it all comes down to people, whether it's the people that you work with, the people that are coming to your club as daily fee resort guests, or the people that are members of the club. And that's why I'm so drawn to the private club side. And I'm so passionate about private club operations and the journey that a potential member goes through in a membership sales perspective. But I also think it's the ability to share the other properties around the world. Troon's in 17 countries around the world. And by the time I say that, we're probably going to add another country to the list as fast as Troon is growing. And it's also the quality of the best practices that you just mentioned, is that there's nothing new in this industry. There's nothing that the club down the street can do that's different than the club that's next door is going to be able to do. But then Troon is able to share those best practices. And I got the opportunity when I was in Florida. I was 2018, Troon actually has a Facility of the Year in their entire portfolio, and Tiburon was named Facility of the Year that year. We hosted the Troon Cup that year as well, which is an annual event that is basically the biggest and best, and it allows all Troon Privé facilities to send a team. This year, actually, our head golf professionals taken 3 gentlemen from our club to Pronghorn in Bend, Oregon for the 2021 Troon Cup. So then learning from that, so going through a Troon Cup in the same year that we hosted 2 tour events, the same year that we're named Facility of the Year, that same year I was nominated for the Troon Leader Program. Troon Leader Program, 12, 15, 18 associates worldwide, and with tens of thousands of associates worldwide, to be nominated, it's not something that I can go to a website and submit my own application. It's a situation where the general manager has to actually nominate me. I go through an interview process, et cetera. So I get in front of the committee for that process and did not get in. And Chad Nigro, who is the director of golf at Tiburon still to this day, did get in. So we actually had 2 people from our club nominated. And I sent my thank yous to everyone that was a part of that process. And then I moved to California, and a year into that, I get an email that I've been nominated by Ron Banaszak. So I actually got into the leader program. Of all of the years to go through a program like that, it's hands-on. I'm cutting cups and mowing fairways. I'm in the kitchen flipping burgers. I'm working on balance sheets and writing budget plans. It's every single facet. I took over 250 pages of notes through that. I'll reflect on that for the rest of my career. That opportunity doesn't exist without a Troon. That opportunity doesn't exist without the people in the field that are wanting to learn those things from a club operations perspective. And it was really interesting because you get a mentor with that program. And the mentor is usually the person that nominates you, who's the general manager of your property. I get nominated. I get accepted into the program. It's not a couple of weeks later, Ron relocates to Los Angeles. Now what do I do? And I ended up doing it with a mentor who was the senior vice president of operations for this property. But I ended up doing it kind of on my own. And I liked that because it allowed me to do it at my speed, at my pace, and my journey through that program. And actually got the chance to go through that, graduated from the program. Not everyone that was in the program did graduate. And it's just unbelievable to be able to have that experience and to have those notes that I'll go back to for the rest of my career. So it's things like that. There's no one thing that makes Troon what it is today. But if you had to say one thing, it would be the people that surround us. And it's the biggest and the best in the business.
Yeah, you hit on so many things there. And I think what I've learned working for some organizations that I would say are able to scale up, there's some organizations that, whether it be in the restaurant business, the hotel business, the golf business, the club business, those facilities, those organizations that are able to manage multiple facilities and maintain a standard across all those multiple facilities. They need 2 things. And the number one thing is people. And the second thing they need is systems. And I think that the clubs, the organizations that, when you get to the top of that chain, people, everyone can have systems, but if it's the time and the care and the attention of kind of making sure, like you said, that leadership development, like that commitment to developing leaders from within. And I know how much Troon believes in that kind of growing from within and opportunities and all that type of stuff. In the leadership program, Ricky, what do you think, if you kind of had said, here's the one thing that I took from that leadership program that I'm going to use in my career as you continue on as a, club manager or whatever, all the things you want to do. What would you say is kind of one of the things that you wake up in the day and say, this is how I want to move my career forward from what I learned in that leadership program?
Well, I'm going to go back to the people because it's the unsung heroes that are there at 5 o'clock in the morning, prepping the golf course every day that probably manual labor wise work harder than anybody else on property. And then they're gone before the club even opens for the day. But yet those individuals are out there mowing the grass and mixing chemicals and making sure the golf course stays at the level that the members and guests expect. And just to be able, I'll never forget this. One of the first days that it was 8 sections of agronomy, for example, as a part of the program. And I remember standing on, let's say, hole 4, cutting cups, and the sun's not even up yet, and to literally watch the sun rise over the mountaintops in the distance. The day that person cutting those cups doesn't get something in them that they feel from that experience is the day that they need to go do something else. And the gentleman that I'll never forget him. The gentleman that I was with is now a superintendent at a club in Napa. And we stood there, just took a breath and just said, look, that's your office. And, the ability to see all of the different levels of operation, whether it's food and beverage, whether it's the finance and the budgeting and making sure that from a club that's a nonprofit that we spend what we make. And if we don't, what happens? And just getting a high level overview, but then diving deep into each individual section. I'm a questions guy. I ask questions. Even if I know the answer to the question, I'll ask it to hear maybe there's a different way of thinking about it. And it was just information overload. And keep in mind, this was a 1-year program that went 14 months because of the pandemic, while I'm still trying to sell memberships and retain current members as the membership director. So it wasn't a situation where it was, okay, you take the next year off and go do all of this content. That was in addition to I wish it was 40, 50, 60 hours a week that we're also working to try to service our members and guests. So it was something that really taught me a lot about time management, prioritization, and then the individual, to know that those individual department heads are running their own departments, and the way that the accounting department runs is completely different than the food and beverage, is completely different than the athletics, is completely different than the golf. And to be able to have an understanding that when something goes awry, to be able to know that, hey, I understand that more now, having seen it up close and personal with my hands on it.
Yeah. The thing that resonates with me there, in addition, when I think about our listeners and I think about club managers and I think about the challenges that we have in running our businesses, that commitment that Troon shows to employee leadership development, like that dedication of time, because time's money. So every hour you're spending learning how to cut a cup in the green is an hour you're not doing your normal job. So that's a commitment from a club. It's like, you take an employee out of something and say you're going to spend 2 weeks in the kitchen. Well, these are all investments in the future. And I think, why do you, obviously this is a self-serving question because we're a training platform with Golf Industry Guru, but why do you think, or do you think actually there's a challenge in the industry to develop or commit to training, to commit to that investment, that long-term thing? Do you think that there's a challenge there in how the club industry kind of works or expects? I always say the business is more complicated than rocket science. You literally, to run a club, you literally have to know about agronomy and about food cost and about financials and about balance sheets and about how to sell a shirt and what's the new driver. You have to know many things. So do you think that training in our industry is challenged, or do you think it's getting better? What are your thoughts?
I don't think that it's a challenge at all, because it's up to you, the person that wants to learn something. If I want to know how to cut a cup, and I'll use that as the example because that was probably one of the coolest experiences. Like, wait a minute, I'm going to go cut a cup into this brand spanking new putting surface that was just mowed and rolled. And so you can learn how to do that on your own. And if you can do it through YouTube videos, you can do it by asking your superintendent. It's on you. It's on me to go out and learn these things. Now, Troon was able to provide the conduit through the Troon Leader Program. But if I wanted to learn something that's specific, if I've got that question that I even know the answer to or don't, it's on me to go get that answer. And I'm not going to apologize for asking the question and trying to get that answer. Now, I've got an obsession with continued education and progress in terms of career progression. And also, I challenge myself to be 1% better every single day. So if tomorrow I'm 1% better than I am today, and I am going to be better because of this conversation right here, to be able to come on this podcast is an incredible honor to me, to be able to talk about the career that I've got and the journey that I've been on. And to be able to just share that with you and your audience is an honor for me. And to be able to think about, if there's a question that I need the answer to, I'm going to go find it. And it's on me, as is my career progression, as is me going through and saying, I can sit here and be a membership director for the rest of my career, and that's fine. And I am going to crush it because I'm dedicated to the craft. But maybe that's not what I want to do 3, 5, 10 years from now. It's on me to figure out how to get through that next level. And with my podcast, for example, which I think we may talk about in a little bit, my podcast is just a creative outlet for me. I just do it because I'm interested in learning more. And the people that I've met through that is just absolutely incredible. And you're an example of that.
So what made you start a podcast? So you just said that you wanted to learn. Was a podcast a natural thing? Was it like, obviously you're a great speaker, you're a great interviewer, I've listened to you on your podcast, but was it like, I'm going to do a podcast, or was like, did you fall into it? Like, was it a result of COVID or of listening to Howard Stern? What was it that motivated you to kind of become a podcaster? So
long time ago, you might remember Google Plus. So before Google Plus, I started a blog. I've been blogging for about 12 years now. Just a creative outlet for me to be able to write and share my opinions. And electronic dance music is a big focus of that blog. But I write about everything. But I use that as a way to hone my craft with writing. And Robert Sorecki, the general manager at Medina Country Club, has inspired me to start writing white papers as well. So I've kind of shifted the blog type content to a more focused and polished white paper style. I don't write as many of those as I would like, because I got to make sure that they are exactly what the message is intended to be. Google Plus comes along. I'm creating content there. They make this announcement. We're going to have communities. Like if you think of a Facebook group, we're all in 15 Facebook groups. I created a community and I'm going to call it Golf. I created it at midnight the day they became available because I knew somebody else was going to do it. I created it. It turns out that it turns into the golf community on Google Plus. Had about 26,000 members, about 15,000 active members through that. It was a barrage of content 24/7 from all over the world. And I had this idea. I'm going to create it was through Hangouts, which was a video platform very similar to how we're recording this. And it was me, 2 of the founding members along with me, and then a guest. I did that for a few years, then just got to the point. It was the interview session, right? And it was 2 gentlemen that I still stay in contact with to this day. And then I stopped it. And then I was like, look, maybe I'm just going to make a shift. I got to where I missed it. I missed the interview portion. It was a different focus. It was golf, not music. It was a different avenue for me. And I then started, I was like, look, maybe this podcast thing could be a neat way to go. And I listened to 15 different podcasts, and it's become that. It's a creative outlet for me. I try not to miss a week, and I haven't in the last 2.5 years. Every Wednesday morning at 3 a.m. on the East Coast, 6 a.m. on the West Coast, the episodes come out. And this week's episode is 261. And it's been so much fun. And there are days where I wake up and I'm like, do I want to record? Absolutely I do, because I have no idea the conversation that's going to come out of the interview. And it always, 100% of the time, I learn something about the person, I learn something about their brand, and I learn something about myself. And it is just such a fun process, and I couldn't imagine a life without an interview type podcast that I'm responsible for producing.
Yeah, it's good for you. It's so cool. Is your audience a mix of people passionate about golf, people that work in the golf industry, golfers? Like, where do you see it? Where do you see your podcast with the people that you bring on and the content that you talk about? Are you talking to golfers? Are you talking to business to business? Where are you going with it? Or does it change?
It changes, and I got to be completely honest. I don't care. I don't care who listens to it. I just want people to listen to it. And when I wrote my blog, my very first blog post, I was like, "Oh, this is fun. If one person reads it, that's not my mom. It was worth producing." Right. Well, now the .com gets quite a bit of traffic. The podcast gets quite a bit of traffic and downloads. I don't really look at who's listening to it. Now, obviously, I get engagement through social media, and that's not why I'm doing it. So the famous book that Simon Sinek wrote, Start With Why. Well, my why is not based on traffic, and my why is not based on how many downloads can I get. Now, obviously, for the partners that are involved, like MemberText and a brand new partner that I released just in the last 2 weeks is going to be the presenting partner for the 19th hole, which is a segment of every podcast, Links Drinks. I want them to get exposure. They get exposure through the .com. They get exposure through social media. I create custom graphics, and it's just become a flow for me. So the answer is I don't know who listens to it. I would have to assume that it's a big golf focus of individuals, but the B2B is obviously there. The gentleman that's coming on the podcast this week was an incredible conversation. He's a golf ball manufacturer. He's only been in business for 1.5 years. The guy that developed his golf ball, this is breaking news because the episode's not even been released yet, but the golf ball was designed and developed by the gentleman who created the technology for Topgolf, who also developed Jack Nicklaus's golf ball whenever he was on the PGA Tour. And it's like, what are the chances of that, right? Like, I don't have any idea that that's going to come out of this conversation. I see a brand online. I want to tell their story. I want to help get them some exposure and then learn things like that. So who listens to the podcast? I hope everyone listening to yours is listening to mine, but if they're not, I'm not upset about that. And I would challenge everyone. It's 30 to 60 minutes every week, every Wednesday. And I just hope that one person can find one nugget out of all of these 260 plus podcasts that they would take home with them and could learn from.
Do you have a favorite?
The next one. I know that's cliche, but I have no idea who the next interview is going to be. Obviously, I plan strategically, and I schedule some of those in advance. I don't record them in advance because if something happens, like Tiger Woods flipping his car upside down into a ditch, or Tiger Woods winning the Masters, or there's obviously a Tiger connection. I'm a big Tiger Woods fan, but the process is just who in golf wants to tell their story, and I've got an avenue to help them do that. And it's not possible to pick a favorite, like trying to pick a favorite kid. That's not something that I could do. And I would always say that the next one is going to be my favorite because I have no idea where the conversation is going to go.
That's awesome. So one of the things I think is fascinating about when I go through the list and the agenda of all the people that you've had on your podcast, and this is one of the things I have a similar conversation when I talk to golf management students, and we try to talk about the fact that there are so many different ways to make a living in the golf industry, in the club industry. I mean, often, younger people have a perception on what's their option and what's their career path. And so you obviously, in your podcast, for example, have come across all kinds of golfpreneurs, people that have invented something in golf, or that are making their money in golf, or they're getting into golf. My favorite part of the PGA show in Orlando is going to the new session where you see sometimes these poor individuals that have invested their life savings into a special tee that is never going to sell one. But you probably come across all kinds. And so what were some of the things that you found in meeting with these individuals? Like, do they have some traits, some consistencies? If you're a young person listening to this podcast today, listening to Ricky Potts that has interviewed 261 interesting individuals in the golf industry, do you find some consistencies amongst your guests in traits or in abilities or in interests or passions? I'm just curious if you think about that.
I don't, because I have no idea when I talk to Ian Martin, who is a gentleman that's going into one of the most competitive parts of the business, the golf ball. But he's a golfpreneur. I love that, because he is going to be focused on that golf ball, getting the product in the hands of as many people as possible. Maybe it becomes the official golf ball of the Wednesday Match Play podcast. I don't know. I just thought that up. Let's make that happen, right? So the idea behind him coming out trying to release a golf ball in a market that's competitive with the Titleists and the Mizuno and the Callaways and the Strixons and the TaylorMades, is he going to compete? Probably not. But that's not why he's doing it. His why is deeper than that, similar to the why of why I produce this show. And I think that I look at every single one of the guests. The gentleman that's coming on my show next week is a general manager, COO, secretary, which is as if he didn't have enough tattooed on his title, at a club in Canada outside of Toronto. I've got people like the Groove It Brush, which is literally you snap it onto the side of your golf bag, it holds water, you squirt it out, and you clean your clubs. That's an incredible product. You would think that'll be a 5-minute interview. It was not. We talked for 45 minutes, and he's got a connection to Arnold Palmer, and just you learn those things from those individuals. And I look at the golfpreneurs that's so eloquent. I love that. And I look at those. I think that the consistency between them is that they've got a passion for the game and a passion for the growth of the game. And one of the things that I do on my podcast every February, I dedicate the show to Black History Month, and I have African-American guests for that entire month. And I don't talk about it as such, but that's just the way that it's there. It's underlined. And that's the way that I handle the guests for that month. Do the same thing for Women's Golf Month. So I have all females. Funny enough, 2 of those guests this year, I opened up the most recent issue of Golf Inc. magazine, and there's a Grow the Game piece featuring 2 ladies that are growing the game of golf, both of which were on my podcast, completely disconnected from one another this year during Women's Golf Month. What are the chances of that? That's incredible.
Awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. That's so good. Do you find your guests just by researching the internet and reading stories and magazines and kind of seeing what interests you? And then you're just like, hey, that person would be interesting. And that person would be interesting. Is that kind of how it flows? Is it very, very organic for you?
It's very organic. And while I've got guests that are dialed in to come onto the show in the next few months, I do that because I don't want to miss an episode. And I want to make sure that if I can, let's say I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks, I got to make sure I've got guests that are dialed in and I can schedule the content. And I find a brand that I've never heard of that's golf. I do a little research. I look them up on Facebook, Twitter, their website, reach out. Hey, I want to have you on my podcast. Let's go. Link's Drinks happened that way. Link's Drinks is a canned transfusion. I had never had a transfusion before. It is not his main focus in his career over the course of his life. He's had 1,000 jobs in golf and just an awesome story. Cans this cocktail. It's 7% alcohol. It's branded to golf. Calls it Link's Drinks. Awesome conversation. He sends me a few cans, and it's delicious, by the way. That's one episode, and I'm not going to not think about that going forward. But when Quintex Golf comes on this show, I'm going to talk about him and feature his golf ball. And then in a couple of weeks, I've got the director of golf at Yochadihi Golf Club, which is a Troon managed facility 2 hours from where I live. Will Faust is the gentleman's name. He's a personal friend of mine. He went through the Troon Leader Program many years ago. He runs this club that's connected to a casino and a resort. It's an unbelievable property. I go play there every now and again. He and I are actually planning to go play another club in the Bay Area. That's not why I have him on my podcast. I just want to tell his story. So anybody in the game of golf, anybody that's got a product, anybody that's got something that they want to share and showcase, if my channels through Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or .com or whatever can help get your product in more hands, I'm interested to learn more about you.
So I've decided that there's a new job for you after our conversations that we've had, because this is where I'm going to take this podcast, Ricky, and normally this is where I bring up the conversation about, what do you think about the future of the game? And, what do you think about, is this COVID pandemic going to, be the boom to the golf industry? And how has Tiger influenced junior golf? Normally I would go in that direction, and I would try to see if the guest was on the glass half full or the glass half empty version. I already know that there's no glass half empty in your lexicon. And so there's no point in even trying to drag it out of you. I think instead, I've decided that you're going to be the cheerleader. You're going to be the spokesperson for the great, wonderful benefits of the game of golf in the world. And you should just travel around telling everybody about how great the game is. So on that vein, as a person that has, seen it, been there, done that, is doing it. I loved your comment earlier on about controlling your own destiny. You control and make your own destiny. There's no doubt about it. So share with our listeners, if you don't mind, what are your thoughts, positive or negative, if there are any, but what are your thoughts about the state of the game and about, for example, your club went through a bit of a tragedy a couple of years ago with the forest fire, obviously, and losing a clubhouse and things like that. And I was on your website. I mean, what a gorgeous property, what a amazing facility, what cool plans for rebuilding a clubhouse, and et cetera, et cetera. And I would guide our listeners to check out Fountain Grove Golf Club. And it's like any Troon property. They got fantastic marketing, fantastic websites. But whether it's membership sales, whether it's interest, whether it's junior programs, how do you think the golf industry is going to look like? Because you can't, no matter how glass half full you were, if we were having this conversation 2 years ago, 25 months ago, right, we would be probably talking about all the signals and the indicators that have been happening in the golf industry for the last decade previous to that. And we'd be talking about, people on mountain bikes and not on golf courses and all those other types, and kids on their phones and not in junior camps. We'd be having all those conversations. But now here we are, 25 months later, and we're hopefully coming out of a complete change around the world and growth in golf. What are your thoughts? How do you put this together in your head, and how do you think this is going to impact the golf industry in the next decade?
So you talk about the glass being half full or half empty. It's runneth over in that respect. So the passion that I have for the game is, and let's go back. I went to school to be an engineer. Can you imagine me sitting behind a computer being an engineer and handling? No way. No,
unless your job was to make theme parks.
No, that would be fun.
But no.
So the game of golf is, obviously there's all of the data, and I live in a data-driven world to where if it says that the data speaks to the way that I operate. So the interest in the game of golf because of the pandemic is through the roof. We haven't seen growth like this since Tiger. And as a Tiger fan, if he's not playing, I'm not watching. I would rather be on the golf course. I would rather be engaging with my members and their guests. I would rather be doing things that are outside of that. If Tiger's playing, don't bother me because I'm in front of the TV. I don't care if he's in last place and he's making bogey on every hole. I want to watch him play because he changed the game of golf for a lot of people, myself included. I drive a red car because he wears red on Sunday. So I'm not kidding when I say that. So Tiger is golf in that respect. Now, is Tiger the only thing that matters to golf? When you look at private clubs, the world that I'm in, I don't think that there's ever going to be a decline per se with private clubs because people don't join private clubs because Tiger's on TV on Sunday. People join private clubs because, let's go back to the people. I live in the area. I work in the area. I've got 2 kids. I want to be able to engage with my friends. And what you're seeing with millennials that are getting into the club world is that, yeah, golf's there. Cool. But you got a pool and you got fitness and you got dining. Golf is important, but maybe it's not the most important thing of why people join clubs. And I see that on a daily basis. I see people that have joined as golf members at the Fountain Grove Club that have played golf 3 times in the last 5 months, but they're at the gym 4 days a week. They're by the pool on Saturday and they're in the dining room on Friday for dinner. So it's a different world that we're going into. And yeah, you're going to have the ups and the downs. You're going to have, like with 2008, you're going to have things like with the pandemic where you're going to go through the roof to where we literally can't process any more membership sales. We're actually knocking on the door of sold out here, which imagine that. Imagine hiring a guy that's never sold memberships before. Ask the question, what do I do and how do I do it? Processes. I want to go back to that quickly if we can in a moment. Building processes that are scalable that I'm able to take and go from how do I process 3 tours this week to how do I process 7. But then also being able to get those individuals into the building, but then to retain those individuals. How do I keep John Doe and his wife Jane Doe happy when I know that they didn't have a good experience last week at the pool? Or being able to be, it's more than just, they're not customers, they're owners. And it becomes a situation where my focus is on them. Whatever the issue is, for whoever the issue is, that's the biggest deal in the world, whether it's slow play and a guy was hitting into me, or my cheeseburger last Tuesday for dinner was overcooked. That's the biggest deal in the world. Let's fix it. And I take it personal because I can't not, because you're there, you're spending your dollars at the club. I helped you get into your membership role. You're spending more money than you probably want to on a monthly basis for membership dues to be at a club that's a private club. It's my responsibility to make sure you're happy. If you don't tell me, I don't know that you're not happy. So I encourage all of our new members, tell me. Tell me if your burger was overcooked. Tell me if the grass on the greens are too slow. Whatever that looks like, let me know, because if I can't fix it, I'm going to go find someone that can. And I also look at problems that when I see problems, if I see the problem, I'm going to fix the problem. And if I'm not the one that's actually able to fix the issue, I'm going to go to the department head and just relay the message and ensure that individual is going to empower him or herself to go fix that problem because the member had the issue that they had. And check the box to the next issue, because there's going to be an issue. Something's going to break tomorrow. Something's breaking right now. As we said here, a treadmill's going down, or a tree's falling over, or a cart path getting damaged. Something's happening. And I love that, because tomorrow's not going to be like today, and the next day and the day after that. And the game of golf isn't going anywhere. That's proven. What people go to a club for, why they join a club is changing. But a club is a club is a club. And it's a matter of how you make sure that you're providing your members and their guests with what they want when they want it in a timely fashion, but not also going and giving them what you think they want. Give them what they want. Know who you are, stay in your lane, and make sure that you're not trying to compete with the club down the street, because the club down the street may be offering something that you don't that's different, and that's okay. So making sure that wherever you are, whatever club that you're at, knowing that your members and guests are there by choice, and making sure that you're keeping them satisfied while they're on property. And that comes into membership retention. It's important to have membership retention because it's a lot cheaper to keep a member than to get a new member to join. Mm-hmm. And I just love the thought of all of this, because again, going back to processes of creating these processes that you can create these processes of how you get a phone call, hey, I'm interested in membership, an email, I'd like to join the club, a Facebook message, tell me more about your golf memberships. But how you take that lead, how you nurture that lead, walk him or her through the sales process to whenever they join, now they've joined, now what? It's not just, well, there are the keys, here's your member number, see you later. There's orientations that have to take place. You have to follow up with them. I follow up with every new member every 30, 60, 90 days. In 90 days, let's go play 9 holes. I just want to hear about your experience. Mm-hmm. It gives me an excuse to go play 9 holes, but it also gives me the chance to learn more about our members. And the members become more than just a dollar sign. They become friends. They become family. And there are members that if I see John Doe walk into the athletic center and he's got his AirPods in, I'm not going to bother him. I'm going to acknowledge him. I'm going to wave because I know he's having a bad day. But if he's not got his AirPods in, he's smiling, he's waving, I'm going to spend 5 minutes talking to him. I'm going to a meeting. That's fine. The meeting will be there when I get there. The member right now, that's my focus. Whatever he needs, whatever he wants to talk about, that's my focus.
As a membership director, / club manager, depending on whose job it is, because at lots of clubs, it is the job of a general manager to also sell memberships or to be that person. But as a membership director, how do you get the rest of the team to be as passionate about those burgers and the green speed and about that member experience? How do you, because often I would assume from a membership director, for example, right? I assume that might be a layer that's a similar layer to the chef or to the director of golf or to the superintendent or to whomever. How do you get your fellow team members on the bus with you? And maybe you do, maybe you always do. Maybe it's not difficult. I'm just asking because sometimes in my world, it's very difficult to get people on the same bus going in the same direction and happy to sit in the front seat. Sometimes they're pulling in a different direction. So what's the skills that you use that you think help managers get people as enthusiastic about the member experience as you are?
You can't teach it. I can't put you in a room and write on a whiteboard that it's important that if you see a straw wrapper on the floor 4 feet to your right, that you go pick it up. You just have to innately do that. Now, I can tell you and ask you and expect that you do, but you're not going to. And if you don't, that's fine. You don't see it the way that I see it. That's okay. That's okay, because I've got the passion for the operation. I've got the passion for those things that, again, going back to what I said, if there's a problem, a straw wrapper on the concrete 3 feet to the right is a problem. I'm going to go over. I'm going to take 2 seconds. I'll pick it up, put it in my pocket, and go on. And I was doing that. As a matter of fact, I was doing that a couple of weeks ago, and a member stopped me. He's like, "What are you doing? Why are you picking up trash? Trash doesn't go there. That's why I'm picking it up." So I'll walk around property all day, every day. If I've got the opportunity just to clean things up, I'm straightening things. Literally last night, I'm sitting there having a drink, and there were bottles in the cooler behind the bar that 2 of them were not facing forward. So I'm thinking about it for like 20 minutes, and I get to the point, and I'm like, "Bartender, could you please just face those wine bottles? It'll make me feel so much better." Now, that's obviously a unique situation, but that's my mind's always thinking that way, right? Trying to find ways to make the experience better. The same way I'm trying to personally get 1% better tomorrow, I'm trying to professionally get 1% better tomorrow. So if I can lead by example, awesome. I'm not expecting them to do that, but I hate the saying, and I am a quotes guy. I love quotes. I hate the saying, "That's not my job." Well, I'm not saying it's your job and it's not in your job title or your job description, but guess what? That straw wrapper doesn't belong over there. Pick it up and put it in the trash. And I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad that you don't see it and think that that's the right thing to do. I do. That's fine. That's just the way that I've been raised. Maybe it's because my backyard was a cornfield, and that's just the way that I've been raised. But again, going back to the cheeseburger, if the cheeseburger is overcooked and you're upset about it, you're not paying for the burger, and I'm going to make sure the chef knows that it was overcooked, that you had a bad experience. Because if you don't tell us, the next time you're going to have lunch, you're not going to order a cheeseburger because the last one was overcooked, but we don't know that it's not cooked the way that you want it. So I think that constant communication, setting expectations, ensuring that you are living to those expectations, and ensuring that the staff sees that you're living to those expectations helps further that down the road. Now, I think that from a leader's perspective, is that there are the people that come in and punch the clock, and all they want to do is clock in, clock out, and go home. That's fine. That's totally fine. You need people like that in an operation, but I would hope that there is a relationship between the leader, the general manager, the chief operating officer, and that staff member, whether it's somebody at bag drop, whether it's somebody in the kitchen washing dishes, or whether it's your superintendent, that you have the relationship. Comes back to people. It always comes back to people, because if you don't have people to take care of the members, you don't have members, so there's nobody to take care of them. See how that all works? It comes back to the people. The people are who and what matters most. We work in the dues business, and we work in the golf business, and the hospitality business. We work in the people business. Without people, you don't have an operation. So it comes with just showing and leading by example, education, training, and being transparent with that education and that training, and being able to have an open door policy that if somebody needs something, we'll have the line of communication, good, bad, or indifferent. And I would love it if I could see someone that just walks over and picks up that straw wrapper. I'm going to clap, and I might put a $25 gift card in their mailbox. Not even tell them why. Just thank you. And showing gratitude as well, I think all of that comes full circle, is showing the gratitude and knowing that John Doe doesn't take gratitude the same way that his sister does, the same way that his brother does. That the gratitude, you have to know those people. You have to be able to have, and I just read, going back to Robert Sorecki, he wrote a white paper that I just read in the most recent Boardroom magazine on love and how you have to love your staff. Now, love and intimacy are not the same. He talks about that at length, that it's a very different world, and that in the private club space, and That's a long answer to the question, but I think that it all boils down to people and just making sure that you're able to have that relationship with those individuals at a professional level.
Do you ever find it difficult to get up and get on your suit and get to work and deal with the day-to-day of a private club? Do you ever need something to kind of help you put your smile on your face before you walk in the door?
God, no way. You kidding me? I hate to go to bed because I can't wait to get up. No way. No, when I leave the club for the day, I feel bad that I'm leaving. If there's still a member on property, I feel bad that I'm leaving. But then I get up in the morning, and because of that agronomy help, I'm going to give a tip of the cap to Andy Lindloff, our superintendent. When he told me that, when I said, what time I have to be at the office tomorrow? And he's like, 5. I was like, 5 seems a little late. He was like, well, we can do 4:30 a.m. I'm sorry, what? You're up at what time? And now, I'm waking up at 5:30 every morning, and I can't wait to get ready so I can go to the office and impact someone's life. And it's about experiences to me for the member and their guests. And there is not, I can't imagine the day that I wake up and I'm bored. I can't imagine the day where I wake up and I'm not excited to go into the office. And if that happens, if I wake up one day and I'm like, I guess I got to go in today, that's the day that I will have to look for something else, because that will be the day I will know that my time in that position, and that wouldn't be fair to the members and guests if I have that mentality. I have to show up. I have to be 100% because I, A, don't know how not to be, and B, our members and guests expect that and demand that.
Yeah, you bet. That's awesome. How lucky is that club of yours, Fountain Grove? Ricky, my last question for you, bud. So if you were a young person who is just in the golf industry for a couple of years, they want to be in the golf industry for the rest of their career. They don't know what exactly they want to do, but they love the golf, just like you. They love the golf industry. They love the golf business, and they're starting on their journey. And they ask you for a coffee, and they say, "Ricky, what advice do you have for me to as I embark on my path, as I embark on my career path to be in this industry? What have you learned? What's one thing you've learned from all of your connections and your experiences and your jobs and your contacts and your research and your white papers and your podcasts? What's a good piece of advice that you would give me?"
That is a great question, and I would give the advice to find people that are around you. I would challenge you to find 10 people that you can lean on, and I'm gonna dive into those 10 individuals. Those 10 people, try to make those 10 people better than you. Make those 10 people smarter than you. Make those 10 people the people in the role that you want to get into or that you think you want to get into, and lean on those people. Now, those people that you are surrounding yourself with, if they lean back and they respond to you, they're the right 10 people. And if they don't, that's fine. They don't have to be in your circle. Of those 10, try to get yourself to the middle of those 10, where you've got 5 people that are above you, that are better than you, that are in the positions that you want, and then the 5 people that are not necessarily less than you by any means, but that are at a different level than you are, that you can learn from them as much as they can learn from you. Find mentors, not a mentor, mentors. More than one person that you can literally pick up the phone. I've got 5 people that I put at my boardroom table. I've got a professional boardroom table. Those 5 people change yearly. Going back to private club governance, it's just 3 people come in, 3 people go out, and the whole thing. I try to relate those things. Those 5 people at my boardroom table are the 5 people that if I've got an issue, a comment, a question, a concern, or I just want to talk about the weather, I can text them, call them, email them, and they respond immediately. I'm going to take this to the next level. Outside of the mentors that you have, get a coach. I am slowly, and he can attest to this, Kevin MacDonald, who is from Canada, who I'm sure you know well, is him.
One of our previous podcast guests, yeah.
He's incredible. Him and Shelley McDougall run the Extraordinary Leader Program, not to be confused with the Troon Leader Program. I am this close, and I've been telling him that for the last 6 months, to joining the Extraordinary Leader Program, because a coach is not a mentor. A coach is not a mentor, because Michael Jordan had a coach and Michael Jordan had mentors. Not the same thing. And it's okay not to have the same thing. Now, they're similar. You can blur those lines. But I'm getting to the point in my career, and I'm getting to the point in my life where I have the mentors. I've got that boardroom table full of those individuals. But I also need some coaches in my corner. So the work that Kevin and Shelley are doing is out of this world. They are absolutely incredible to this industry. Talking about somebody that'll pick up the phone and answer a call. Now, granted, he's probably doing a master call right now, and he's busy, but he'll get back to you. He responds 100% of the time.
Always, yeah.
getting those people around you, being willing to be vulnerable with those individuals, not being of the mind that you can't have vulnerability with those people, and be willing to ask the questions. Especially, I mean, I'm not old and I've not been around this business for that long, but I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to point to Bill Johnson. So Bill is a longtime club manager. Funny enough, used to be the general manager of the Fountain Grove Club. He's a big fan of the Golden State chapter. I see him all the time. He's in every webinar. He's in every education. The guy is probably close to, if not ready to just be done working, but yet he's still learning. So I dedicate myself to becoming a lifelong learner. I read a ton. I spend less time on social media and more time in a book. I'm highlighting, I'm asking questions, I'm networking with people. If I read an article in Boardroom, it's a page or it's 2 pages of content, and I find something, one piece that I can pull from that, one nugget, I'll reach out to the person. I'll build the relationship. I'm not reaching out for me. I'm reaching out to them to thank them for sharing something that I might be able to take back to my operation. So somebody that's, let's say, a 22-year-old that wants to get into clubs and is looking, they're graduating college, they're getting into the club world, be a sponge. I'm a sponge, and I'm almost 40 years old, and I'm a sponge. I take everything in. I think about it. I take notes. I reflect on it. I write about it. I would encourage anyone that's younger to find those people that can be the people that you know are going to be in your corner for the rest of your career. Those 5 people that sit at your boardroom table. Surround yourself with 10 people, 5 of which are better and 5 of which are where you've come from, and just be focused on continuous improvement to be 1% better tomorrow than you were today. Imagine that. Imagine that if you wake up on January 1st and you go to bed on December 31st and you're 365% better than you were a year ago. Think about the potential that exists in just that mindset. So be a lifelong learner. Don't be afraid to ask the questions, even if you know the answer. And don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call, email, text, message anyone in this industry, because there's nobody in this industry that's not willing to share what he or she has gone through, and just have fun. And as Greg Patterson says, enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Ricky, that's fantastic, man. What a fantastic wrap up. What a fantastic bit of advice. You know, you were so enthusiastic, and you got to bottle that up. You got to create Ricky Potts in a bottle, in a pot, with a Potts cast. I'm going to come up with all kinds of different monikers for you. I'm going to send you a list. I don't know what it is, but just fantastic. Ricky, how can our listeners get to your podcast, get to your content, learn more from you, reach out to you if through social media? Just tell our listeners how they can touch base with the Ricky Lee Potts.
All you got to do is go to Google and just type in my name and you'll find me. RickyLeePotts.com is the home where everything exists. You can get to the podcast. You can learn more about the Golf Radio Network, which the podcast is a part of. You can learn more about me. You can learn more about what I'm into in terms of music and travel and just everything. Just email me, call me, text me, whatever. Text is absolutely the easiest way to get a hold of me, and I'll respond to 100. And it's so funny. I love this. I was listening to a podcast, the John C. Maxwell Leadership Podcast, and he's got a new person joining his team. And the gentleman put his cell phone number in his book, and he said, I didn't expect to sell 300,000 copies, but if you text me, I'll respond. And I messaged him on Twitter, and he responded within 20 minutes. It's unbelievable. So I'm an open book, and I am ready to help have any conversations that I can. I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of me with you and the Gig Nation. And just, it's incredible to be able to build these relationships in this industry. But if there's ever anything that I can do for anyone listening to this podcast, let me know, because I am excited to meet and connect with every single one of you.
Ricky, thanks so much. Gig Nation, a big shout out, a big thank you to Ricky Potts for being on today's Golf Industry Guru podcast. And thanks for listening, as always. And as always, we will see you on the inside.
Thanks for listening to the Gig Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and mostly that you learned a few things that will help you improve your business. Join us next time as we continue to bring you the best and brightest golf and hospitality leaders on the planet. Thanks for listening.